Hey YouTube, it's Calvin, and in today's video, I want to talk about what I learned from my trip in Europe. I got back a couple days ago, and this trip has been very meaningful and memorable to me for a lot of reasons. And after kind of reflecting on what it is that I kind of gained from this trip, I realized I learned three major things, and I'm gonna really briefly talk about them in this video. And so the first thing that I learned is that my brother and I are very different people. And as obvious as that may be, I realize that just because we are different doesn't mean we have to constantly fight or argue during our trip or even in our relationship. For Charles and I, we view the world very, very differently. And we also view traveling and vacationing differently as well. For me, when I like to travel, I like to go to a place and really relax and slow down and really enjoy the small things and the small moments. And for Charles, he sees traveling as a once in a lifetime opportunity where he may never ever go back to this place again. And so for him, he wants to do as much as he can to fully experience what he may never be able to experience again. And while I don't think there's a correct answer to traveling because it means very different things for a lot of people, I realize that's okay and that we have to learn how to compromise if we're traveling with other people. We can't just do what we want to do. And I realized that in the way that Charles and I traveled together this past trip, I tend to be the one who gets I tend to be the one that gets frustrated much more easily. And I had to learn to apologize to him and how to compromise doing the things that he wanted to do. And the way that we kind of did that was by scheduling London in the way that I kind of like to travel and scheduling Paris in the way that he likes to travel. And to be able to see the two different dynamics of the way that we view traveling was great. And unfortunately, with the things that were going on in Paris, we weren't able to fully do everything, but still, I had a really great time with him. Second thing, the second thing that I learned was why do I take pictures? Or really, I had to answer this question to really come to the realization of it. But this is a question that I had to answer throughout the trip. In the beginning, I was taking photos to kind of show others what I was doing, what I was eating, or where I was. But then I realized that by doing so, I was traveling more for others than for me. Then I decided to take pictures of each moment. But because I was taking so many photos to try to capture each moment, I realized that it made each moment less special. Because if everything is special, if every moment is special, then nothing is. Special would lose its meaning if everything was special. And then I saw this, or I kind of noticed this a lot more, was that everyone was taking the exact same photo of the exact same thing. And I began to wonder, what is it about that makes these photos different? Hypothetically speaking, we could have the perfect background, and all we needed to do, or all we need to do, is really switch out who is in the photo. And we would all have our Instagram worthy photos to share. And so I was thinking about, am I taking this photo because I want to take this photo? Or am I taking this photo because everybody else is taking this photo? And so I realized that as I was traveling throughout these different places, I was really focused on my phone, my camera lens. I was taking videos of things that I was seeing, I was taking pictures of the things around me, and I realized that instead of viewing the world through my own eyes and seeing for myself the place that I was at, I was really looking at it through my camera lens. So what I decided to do was to only take photos of things that I could recall the way that I felt or the way that I experienced that moment through my five senses. And so what I did was I went back through my camera roll and started deleting photos of things I knew I wasn't going to look back on. I didn't want to fill my camera roll or photos of things that I would never look back on again. I really changed the way that I took photos, and I really wanted to capture the moments of things that I could recall and remember. And I also realized that photos or pictures are very limited in what they can convey. Yes, there's that popular phrase that each photo or each picture is worth 1,000 words, but it's only in the visual aspect. It's what you can see. Videos, on the other hand, can capture too of both sound and sight, but we lose out on the other senses of taste, smell, and touch. And so, for me to be fully present in the moment, I realized that I had to learn to enjoy the moment without overemphasizing being in that moment. Because by emphasizing something too much, we lose out on focusing on everything else. And by focusing and missing out, we really don't know what we're experiencing. And so I realized that it's in this fine balance between the middle, somewhere in the middle, where things come together. So what I did was whenever I was eating food, I would often close my eyes to really kind of understand the smell of what it was that I was eating, the taste of all the distinct flavors of whatever it was, and even the texture of what I was eating, whether it be French fries or steak or, bread. I was really trying to understand each individual aspect. And also, like when I went to the Louvre, I put in my AirPods to really cancel out the background music and to really connect with the art in the visual sense. And so through these realizations, I've learned to appreciate the food that I had and also the ability to experience the world in very different ways with my five senses. And so now the reason why I take photos is really more so to recall or to really remember what that moment or that food tasted like or what that thing made me feel. And so I think that that has been a good shift for me. Instead of just taking photos for the sake of taking photos, now there's a reason to behind each photo that is taken. And lastly, the thing that I learned while on this trip was I realized that I was living my rich life. I read a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And in his book, he tells people to know or think about what your rich life looks like. What does it mean to be rich for you? To some, it may be traveling around the world with credit card points. To others, it may be, spending lots of money on clothes, but, consciously holding back on other aspects of life or living in a paid off home. Being rich means different things to a lot of people. So what does it mean to live your rich life? And I think that I realized that there's no need to compare what I think my rich life should be with others. When I first read the book, I really didn't think about what my rich life would look like. When I read it last year, I was like, you know what? I guess being rich would be ordering something other than water while at a restaurant. But then while on this trip, it hit me. And I realized that I was living my rich life on this trip, and that my rich life was being able to eat whatever I wanted on the menu without worrying about the cost of the meal while traveling. The reason why it became my understanding of my rich life was because I wasn't worried about the cost anymore and solely the experience. My rich life became about experiencing the moments that I wanted to experience regardless of what it cost, whether that be time or money. When I realized that I essentially had made it, I had become rich, I was so content and happy with where I was in life. The place that I lived, the people that I worked with, the people that I did life and community with. I realized that I was rich, not because of how much money was in my bank account, but because of everyone and everything that brought me to this point and made me into who I am today. I'm so grateful, and I realized that money doesn't make someone rich. It's really the people that you do life with that make you rich. Who you share your moments with, and having those moments to look back on is the rich life and a life well lived for me. In conclusion, when boarding the plane to come back to America, I had no regrets, only a longing to return to the place where my heart was. I was going home to the people that made life worth living and meaningful. I was ready to go back to church. I was ready to see my brothers and sisters in Christ. I was ready to go see my coworkers. I was ready to go back to living in community and living in all of our shared experiences. I learned a lot about myself and about life on this trip, and I'm so grateful to have experienced it, and to my parents and God who let it all happen. Thanks for sticking around. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.